In the flickering glow of a smoky, dimly lit bar, Gorn, a towering reptilian with a hide that shimmered like molten silver, leaned closer to Sitka, a wiry Kazakh insectoid whose multifaceted eyes glinted with secrets. Her voice dropped to a conspiratorial hiss, barely audible over the hum of alien chatter. You ever see what happens when you corner a human? I mean, really back them into a wall. Gorn flicked his heavy tail, nearly toppling a glowing drink from a passing patron's tentacle. He muttered a quick apology, his scales flushing slightly. No, but come on. Sitka, what's the big deal? Humans are soft, squishy things. No claws, no fangs, nothing. I bet they do what any sensible species does, surrender or die. Right. Sitka let out a sound, half laughter, half death rattle, impossible to pin down with her insectoid vocal cords. Oh, Gorn, you're so wrong. That's where the whole damn galaxy's been wrong. She tilted her head back, taking a long, deliberate pull from her fermented nectar through a gleaming proboscis straw, savoring the moment. Those humans, these fragile, pink creatures from that forgotten backwater system, with no natural weapons, no armor, and muscles so weak they can barely climb a flight of stairs. Those humans. Can you believe it? The Vraxian Imperium, those ruthless conquerors, just found out the hard way. Words spreading fast. Their entire invasion fleet, 60 massive warships, gone. Poof. Vanished like smoke in a supernova. Gorn's eyes narrowed, his translator struggling to keep up with his disbelief. No way. The Vraxians? They eat species like humans for breakfast. Literally, Sitka? I've heard stories of their feasts. His tail twitched, knocking a stray glass to the floor, earning a glare from the bartender. Maybe so, Sitka said, her mandibles clicking in what Gorn recognized as a smug, knowing smirk. But humans? Oh, they're not prey. They're the ones who eat the things that eat everyone else. How's that for a twist? Far across the stars, aboard the Vraxian Imperium's flagship, a hulking vessel bristling with weapons, Fleet Admiral Zakin paced the command bridge, his patience fraying like a worn tether. A patient hunter by nature, he'd earned his rank through centuries of calculated conquests, but now his dorsal spines flared in irritation, casting jagged shadows. What do you mean they're refusing surrender terms? He barked, his voice echoing through the bridge. His communications officer, Vexra, a slender female with scales polished to a deferential sheen, kept her own spines carefully flattened. Admiral, the transmission came straight from their unified government. Their exact words were, "We respectfully decline your generous offer and suggest you depart immediately. This is your only warning." Can you imagine the nerve? Zakin's laughter boomed, a guttural rumble that made his crew flinch. Their only warning? To us? Are they blind? He gestured at the massive view screen, where the blue-green jewel of Earth hung below, dwarfed by the ominous silhouettes of 60 Vraxian warships orbiting above its major cities. Don't they see our fleet poised to crush their pathetic world? Vexra's voice was steady, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of unease. They see them, Admiral. They just don't seem concerned. At all. Zakin's amusement faded, his predatory instincts prickling. In his 17 planetary conquests, prey species followed a predictable script. They blubbered, they begged, they offered resources, territory, even their own young, all for a sliver of mercy. Warnings? Never. His tactical officer, Gretch, a wiry Vraxian with twitching ear flaps, ventured. Maybe they're counting on some ally to swoop in and save them? Zakin dismissed the idea with a sharp wave of his claw, nearly slicing the air. Impossible. Their system is isolated, Gretch. The nearest spacefaring civilization is weeks away, even at maximum FTL. No, this is just bravado. Pathetic prey puffing themselves up when cornered. But Gretch's ear flaps twitched again, his voice hesitant. Admiral, our intelligence says humans have no natural defenses. No claws, weak teeth, fragile bones. Yet, they evolved on a Category 8 death world. How does anything survive a place like that without weapons? Zakin scratched his scaled chin, his claws rasping against his hide. Curious, isn't it? Maybe they just bred like roaches, overwhelming their predators with numbers. Who cares? They're no match for us. Sir, Vexra's voice cut through, sharp and strained. We're detecting launches, thousands of them, from multiple surface locations. The view screen flickered, shifting to a tactical overlay that showed a swarm of small objects rising from Earth like a cloud of angry insects. Gretch's claws danced over his console, his voice tense. Primitive chemical propulsion missiles, Admiral. Nuclear warheads, designed for in-atmosphere use. Our shields will swat them like flies. Zakin leaned forward, his eyes glinting with disdain. Is this their best shot? Technology we mastered 12 generations ago? Pathetic. But Gretch's voice spiked with urgency. Wait, these aren't following ballistic paths. They're maneuvering. How's that even possible? Impossible. Zakin snarled, his spines bristling. Primitive weapons can't do that. Incoming transmission from the human government. Vexra announced, her claws trembling as she patched it through. A human female appeared on the view screen, middle-aged, with streaks of artificial color in her hair and a calm that sent a chill down Zakin's spine. Admiral Zakin, she said, her voice steady as steel. I see you've chosen to ignore our warning. Big mistake. Zakin's serrated teeth flashed in a mocking Vraxian smile. Your warning was noted, human, along with your laughable missile launch. When your little nuclear toys bounce off our shields, maybe then we'll talk about your surrender. How's that sound? The human's expression didn't waver, her neutrality unnerving. Those aren't nuclear missiles, Admiral. We ditched nuclear warheads for planetary defense decades ago. Way too messy. She glanced at something off-screen, her lips twitching faintly. What you're seeing are taser platforms, tactical autonomous space engagement robots. Each one's carrying about 1,000 smaller units we call wasps. Ever heard of those? Named after a nasty little insect from our world that doesn't play nice. Zakin's gut twisted, a rare flicker of unease stirring. Whatever primitive drones you've launched, they won't pierce our shields. You're bluffing. Oh, they don't need to, the human replied, her mild smile turning icy, almost predatory. Your shields are tuned to block energy weapons and kinetic impacts. Our wasps? They're moving slow enough to slip right through that gap in your defenses. Sneaky, right? The tactical display lit up, showing the objects decelerating, then fracturing apart, each one releasing a cloud of tiny, menacing units. Gretch's voice hit a panicked octave. The human projectiles, they're latching onto our hulls. They're everywhere. Impossible, Zakin roared, his claws gouging the armrest of his command chair. Raise shields to maximum. Now, too late, I'm afraid, the human said, her tone almost conversational, but with a deadly edge. The wasps are already attached. Each one's got a shaped charge to crack your hull, followed by a payload that's, let's just say, unpleasant. Care to guess what it is? Zakin's spine shot up, fully extended, a reflex he couldn't control. What payload? He demanded, his voice a low growl. The human's expression softened, but it wasn't kindness. It was pity, and it stung worse than any insult. We know Vraxians evolved from apex predators, Admiral. Your ancestors hunted in packs, with instincts so territorial you'd rip each other apart over a rival's scent. Each wasp carries a synthetic pheromone, perfectly crafted to mimic a rival Vraxian pack's territorial marker. Once it's in your life support systems, well, things are going to get interesting, don't you think? Zakin's blood turned to ice, his heart pounding like a war drum. You wouldn't dare, he hissed, his voice trembling with rage and fear. You've threatened our homeworld, Admiral. The human shot back, her calm facade cracking to reveal something ancient, something dangerous that made Zakin's instincts scream to flee. We've been fighting ourselves for thousands of years. Did you really think we wouldn't be ready to take you on? Big mistake. Alarms blared across the bridge, a deafening cacophony as reports poured in. Hull breaches, life support contamination, crew members turning on each other in a frenzied bloodlust. Zakin's own claws twitched, a primal urge rising to lash out at Vexra, at Gretch, at anyone near. What have you done? He roared, his voice shaking the bridge. Exactly what we warned you we'd do, the human replied, her voice cutting through the chaos like a blade. Good day, Admiral. We'll negotiate with whoever's left when you've sorted out this mess. If there's anyone left. The transmission cut, leaving Zakin staring at the tactical display, his once mighty fleet descending into madness. Crews tore at each other, blood staining the decks, as the pheromones drove them to feral insanity. His last coherent thought, before his own instincts betrayed him, was a bitter realization. We chose our prey so poorly. Back in the bar, the air thick with the scent of alien brews, Sitka leaned back, her mandibles clicking in grim satisfaction as she finished her tale. And that's the story, Gorn. The Vraxian invasion fleet ripped itself apart from the inside out. The few survivors? Found drifting in life pods, sedated to keep them from clawing each other's throats out. Can you imagine the chaos? Gorn stared into his drink, the glowing liquid swirling like his thoughts, his earlier dismissiveness replaced by a creeping unease. That's not fighting Sitka. That's something else entirely. What kind of species does that? That's humans, Sitka said, tapping a sharp appendage on the bar top, her eyes glinting with a mix of awe and fear. They don't fight like predators, because they're not predators, not really. They're survivors, Gorn. Their planet tried to kill them every single day of their evolution. Scorching deserts, freezing tundras, predators with claws sharper than yours, diseases that'd make your scales fall off. And you know what? They didn't survive by growing tougher hides or deadlier fangs. Oh no, then how? Gorn asked, his voice low, almost dreading the answer, but too curious to stop. What's their secret? Problem solving, tool making, pattern recognition. Sitka's voice rose, her antennae quivering with excitement. They figured out what kills everything else, then built machines to do the killing for them. Why evolve venom when you can synthesize it? Why grow armor when you can forge it? Why bother with natural weapons when artificial ones hit harder? Humans, Gorn, they're the galaxy's ultimate tricksters. Gorn's tail stilled, his mind racing as he tried to wrap his head around it. But the Vraxians were just unprepared, right? Next time There won't be a next time. A new voice cut in, smooth and confident, startling both aliens. They turned to see a human male, unassuming in plain clothing, but with a posture that screamed military precision. He slid onto a stool beside them, his smile warm but with a hint of something sharp, like a blade hidden in silk. Mind if I join you? I couldn't help overhearing your little chat. Sitka's antennae twitched in shock. You speak Galactic Standard? Without a translator? How? The human shrugged, his grin widening. I've got a knack for languages, plus a nifty implant that nails the trickier phonetics. Your Kazakh clicking? Tough on human vocal cords, but I manage. He extended a hand, unfazed by Gorn's razor-sharp claws. Toby Weber, Diplomatic Corps. Pleasure to meet you. Gorn hesitated, then shook the human's hand, marveling at how Weber didn't flinch at the claws that could shred his soft skin. You were talking about the Vraxian incident, right? Weber continued, his tone casual but his eyes sharp. Quite a story, isn't it? Incident, Gorn echoed, his scales bristling. 60 warships were destroyed. That's no incident. Technically, 53 were salvageable, Weber corrected, his voice light but precise. We've been helping the new Vraxian leadership refit them with proper containment protocols. Part of our reparation agreement, you know? Gotta keep the peace. Sitka's mandibles clicked rapidly, her disbelief palpable. The Vraxians agreed to reparations? After they attacked you? Are you serious? They saw their miscalculations, Weber said smoothly, his diplomatic tone polished to a shine. And we admitted we might have gone a tad overboard with the wasps. Compromise, folks. That's how the galaxy spins. Gorn's eyes narrowed, suspicion creeping in. But why tell us? Isn't this some top-secret military stuff? Why spill it in a dive bar? Weber laughed, a sound that was warm but carried an unsettling edge, like a predator toying with prey. Secret? Oh, not at all. I'm authorized to shout this from the rooftops. The Diplomatic Corps wants these stories to spread. Call it a friendly warning to anyone thinking of picking a fight with Earth. Saves us all a lot of trouble, don't you think? He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. So, tell me, what else have you heard about humans? Because trust me, the Vraxian fiasco? That's just the beginning. The smoky haze of the bar clung to every surface, its dim lights casting eerie shadows as Sitka, the Kazakh insectoid, leaned back on her stool, her mandibles clicking with a grim satisfaction that sent a shiver down Gorn's spine. So, that's the tale, Gorn. The Vraxian invasion fleet? It tore itself apart, ship by ship, in a frenzy of their own making. Can you believe it? The survivors were found drifting in life pods, sedated to stop them from ripping each other to shreds. Gorn, his scaled hide glinting like polished obsidian, stared into the swirling depths of his glowing drink, unease twisting in his gut. That's not fighting Sitka. That's something else entirely. What kind of species pulls that off? That's humans, Sitka declared, slamming a sharp appendage on the bar top, her compound eyes flashing with a mix of awe and dread. They don't fight like predators, Gorn, because they're not predators, not really. They're survivors, forged in the crucible of a planet that tried to kill them every single day. Too hot, too cold, predators with jaws that could crush your bones, diseases that'd make your scales peel off. And guess what? They didn't survive by growing claws or scales like us. Oh no. Then how? Gorn asked, his voice low, a morbid curiosity burning in his eyes despite the chill creeping up his tail. What's their trick? How do they do it? Problem solving, tool making, pattern recognition. Sitka's antennae quivered with excitement, her voice rising over the bar's hum. They figured out what kills everything else, then built machines to do the dirty work. Why evolve venom when you can whip it up in a lab? Why grow armor when you can forge it stronger? Why bother with natural weapons when artificial ones hit like a supernova? Humans, Gorn, they're the galaxy's ultimate wild card. Gorn's tail stilled, his mind racing to grasp the implications. But come on, the Vraxians were just caught off guard, right? Next time they'd. There won't be a next time. A smooth, confident voice cut through, startling both aliens. A human male, dressed in plain clothes that somehow screamed military precision, slid onto a stool beside them, his smile warm, but with a wolf-like edge that made Gorn's scales prickle. Mind if I join you? I couldn't help overhearing your chat about the Vraxians. Quite a story, huh? Sitka's antennae twitched in shock, her mandibles pausing mid-click. You speak Galactic Standard? Without a translator? How's that even possible? The human shrugged, his grin widening, eyes glinting with mischief. I've got a knack for languages, plus a slick implant that handles the trickier phonetics. Your Kazakh clicking? It's a real workout for human vocal cords, let me tell you. He extended a hand, unfazed by Gorn's razor-sharp claws. Toby Weber, Diplomatic Corps. Pleasure to meet you both. Gorn hesitated, then shook the human's hand, marveling at how Weber didn't flinch at claws that could slice through metal. I overheard you talking about the Vraxian incident, Weber continued, his tone casual, but his gaze sharp as a blade. Pretty wild, right? Incident, Gorn echoed, his scales bristling. 60 warships were destroyed. You call that an incident? Technically, 53 were salvageable, Weber corrected, his voice light but precise, like a surgeon's scalpel. We've been helping the new Vraxian leadership refit them with containment protocols to avoid, well, another mess. It's all part of our reparation agreement. Gotta keep the peace, you know? Sitka's mandibles clicked rapidly, her disbelief practically vibrating through the air. The Vraxians agreed to reparations? After they attacked you? Are you kidding me? They saw their mistakes, Weber said smoothly, his diplomatic polish gleaming. And we admitted we might have gone a bit overboard with our response. Compromise, folks. That's how the galaxy keeps spinning. Gorn's eyes narrowed, suspicion creeping in like a shadow. But why tell us? Isn't this some top-secret military stuff? Why spill it in a grimy bar like this? Weber laughed, a sound that was warm, yet carried an unsettling edge, like a predator playing with its prey. Secret? Oh, not at all. I'm authorized to shout this from the stars. The Diplomatic Corps wants these stories to spread. Think of it as a friendly heads-up to anyone thinking of messing with Earth. Saves us all a ton of trouble, don't you think? He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, eyes twinkling. So, what else have you heard about humans? Because trust me, the Vraxian fiasco? That's just the warm-up. Across the galaxy, in the fortified war room of the Hadron Dominion, Grand Marshal Korvik stood like a monolith, his massive armored chest heaving with controlled power. Mistakes were not in his vocabulary. Mistakes got commanders demoted, species subjugated. His war room buzzed with tension as a holographic display projected a Hadron battle group approaching the Sol system, Earth's home turf. His chief strategist, Menz, manipulated the controls with her lower arms, her upper pair pointing out key tactics. We've accounted for those tricky human drone swarms. Our ships now carry enhanced scanning systems to detect even their tiniest units before they can latch onto us. No surprises this time. Korvik nodded, his eyes gleaming with approval. And their psychological warfare? Those sneaky pheromone tricks they pulled on the Vraxians. Completely neutralized, confirmed Dr. Pell, his science advisor, her voice brimming with confidence. Our environmental systems have redundancies and filtration so tight, no chemical or pheromonal attack could ever get through. We're ready. Korvik's gaze returned to the simulation, his mind calculating every angle. What about their ground forces? How do they stack up? Min switched the display to planetary combat projections, her claws dancing over the controls. Humans have surprising endurance for their puny builds, but strength, speed, resilience? They're no match for Hadron warriors. One of our soldiers could take down 8 humans without breaking a sweat, unless they're wearing their fancy power armor, of course. Dr. Pell interjected, her voice cautious. Intelligence suggests their exoskeletons multiply their strength tenfold. Pretty impressive, right? Korvik waved a dismissive hand, his claws glinting. Our weapons are designed to pierce far tougher defenses. Power armor's no big deal. What worries me is their nuclear arsenal. Unlike the Vraxians, humans won't hesitate to use it if we push them too far. Min's eyes lit up, sensing an opportunity. That's actually an advantage, Grand Marshal. Humans are weirdly sentimental about their planet's ecosystem. They'll think twice before nuking their own territory, a weakness we can exploit. Korvik's lips curled into a predatory grin. Perfect. Prepare the fleet. We depart for Sol in 3 cycles. Let's show these humans who rules the stars. Dr. Pell fidgeted, her scales clicking nervously. Grand Marshal, if I may, our intelligence uncovered something unsettling. Humans developed a concept called mutually assured destruction. They built enough nuclear weapons to wipe out their entire civilization multiple times over and kept them ready for decades. Can you imagine? They were willing to end their own species rather than bow to rival factions. Korvik's eyes narrowed, but he brushed it off. Interesting, but irrelevant. Their psychology against their own kind doesn't apply to us. We're here to subjugate, not destroy. They'll bend the knee soon enough. 3 weeks later, the Hadron battle group dropped out of FTL at the edge of the Sol system, their ships gleaming like daggers in the void. A small, unarmed human diplomatic shuttle approached, its presence almost laughably bold. They're hailing us, reported communications officer Leskay, his voice tinged with disbelief. On screen, a human appeared, Ambassador Nquil Douglas, gray-haired, impeccably polite, his smile as steady as a star. Grand Marshal Korvik, I presume? I'm Terran Ambassador Douglas. Welcome to the Sol system. What brings you here? Korvik bared his teeth, a Hadron smile that oozed menace. You seem awfully calm about our arrival, Ambassador. Don't you know who we are? Should we be worried? Douglas's smile didn't falter, his tone infuriatingly serene. We figured this was a diplomatic visit. Was that a bad guess? Korvik's eyes glinted with suspicion. Is that what your intelligence services told you? You're awfully confident for a species staring down our fleet. Among other things, Douglas replied, his voice smooth as silk. We've prepared reception protocols if you'd like to send a delegation to Earth. Our planetary defense grid's been tweaked to ensure your shuttle's safe passage. Sound good? Korvik's gaze sharpened. Planetary defense grid? Our scans show barely any orbital defenses. What are you playing at? Really? Douglas feigned surprise, his eyes twinkling with amusement. That's odd. They should be visible by now. Admiral, could you activate the grid's visibility protocols for our guests? Before Korvik could respond, his tactical officer shouted, Grand Marshal, new contacts, thousands of them, appearing all over the system. The view screen shifted to a tactical display, revealing a dizzying array of orbital platforms, automated weapons, and entire fleets that seemed to materialize from nowhere. Korvik's breath caught. Cloaking technology. How did they? Not cloaking, exactly, Douglas corrected, his tone almost apologetic. Quantum displacement. Our grid exists in a slightly offset state until we flip the switch. Super energy efficient, don't you think? Korvik's composure cracked as sensors screamed, reporting targeting locks from every platform, every ship, pinning his fleet in a web of invisible crosshairs. Douglas cleared his throat, his voice polite but firm. The United Earth government welcomes your delegation for diplomatic talks. Or, if you'd prefer, you're free to leave the system immediately with our best wishes. What'll it be, Grand Marshal? Korvik's four hands clenched into fists, his warrior's blood screaming to attack, to show these soft creatures the might of the Hadron. But he hadn't risen to Grand Marshal by being reckless. It seems diplomatic discussions would be appropriate, he ground out, his voice tight with barely contained fury. Douglas's smile widened, warm and infuriating. Wonderful. We've even prepared traditional Hadron cuisine for the reception. Hope you're hungry. The transmission cut, leaving Korvik staring at the tactical display, stunned into silence. Dr. Pell whispered, her voice trembling with awe. They didn't even threaten us, Grand Marshal. They just changed the entire game. And they made us dinner. Back at the bar, Weber downed the last of his amber drink, the ice clinking as he set the glass down with a satisfied grin. And that, my friends, is how the Hadron Accords were signed. Pretty wild, right? Gorn, Sitka, and a motley crew of aliens. A gelatinous merble pulsing with curiosity, a pair of methane-breathing folks in hissing suits, and an Azonite whose photosynthetic skin swirled with puzzled blues, hung on his every word. The Azonite's voice trembled, her skin flickering. But why didn't humans just crush the Hadron? You had overwhelming force. Why hold back? Why would we? Weber shrugged, his tone light, but his eyes carrying a deeper weight. The Hadron weren't evil, just a bit too eager to expand. Once they saw the real balance of power, they were perfectly reasonable. No need for bloodshed when a handshake works, right? Gorn's tail twitched, his voice sharp. But the Vraxians, you decimated them. That's not exactly diplomatic. Weber's expression darkened for a moment, a shadow crossing his face. The Vraxians wouldn't back down, Gorn. We gave them every chance to retreat, every single one. They chose poorly, and we had to act. His smile returned, softer now. Even then, we didn't wipe them out. Their new government? Progressive, forward-thinking. We're helping them rebuild. That's the human way. The merble burbled, its gelatinous form rippling with excitement. So, humans prefer allies over conquests? Is that your secret? Pretty much. Weber nodded, his grin infectious. We'll fight if we have to, don't get me wrong, but we'd much rather trade recipes than trade fire. Speaking of which, Sitka's antennae perked up, her mandibles clicking eagerly. Is it true humans can eat anything? I've heard wild stories. Weber laughed, the sound echoing through the bar. Well, we're omnivores with stomachs tougher than you'd think. Our scientists joke it's because we evolved eating whatever didn't kill us on the spot. You name it, we've probably tried it. The Azonite's skin shifted to thoughtful greens, her voice soft but probing. This adaptability, it's not just about food, is it? There's more to it, right? Weber's expression turned serious, his eyes locking onto hers. Sharp observation. Adaptability is humanity's defining trait. We evolved on a planet that threw everything at us. Deserts, tundra, oceans, you name it. Unlike apex species with specific tricks, we change our tools, our techniques, whatever it takes to thrive. The merble burbled again, its voice bubbling with awe. Your weakness became your strength. How incredible is that? Not weakness, Weber corrected gently, his voice firm but kind. Just a different strategy. New planet with crushing gravity? We build exoskeletons. Unbreathable air? We engineer life support systems. Predators with psychological weak spots? Well, you know what happened to the Vraxians. Sitka's eyes glinted, her voice sharp with sudden realization. Is that why the Galactic Council gave humans protectorate status over 17 worlds? Because you're so adaptable? Weber raised an eyebrow, clearly impressed. You're well-informed, Sitka? Yeah, the Council saw that our approach is different. We don't terraform worlds to fit us or bulldoze native ecosystems. We adapt to what's there, find ways to coexist. Unlike, say, the Thuk. A heavy silence fell over the group, the name of the notorious insectoid empire hanging in the air like a dark cloud, their reputation for conquest sending a chill through the bar. The bar fell deathly quiet, the air thick with tension as Gorn's whispered words hung like a dark cloud. I heard the Thuk are amassing forces near human space. Can you imagine what that means? His scales shimmered nervously under the dim lights. Weber's face stayed calm, but his eyes turned cold as ice, a flicker of steel beneath his easy charm. The diplomatic corps knows all about it. Gorn, we've sent out invitation after invitation for peaceful talks. Can you believe we're still trying? Sitka's mandibles clicked in a frantic rhythm, her voice trembling. The Thuck don't do dialogue, Weber. They're all about conquest. Always have been. Weber's lips curved into a faint smile, but the warmth was gone, replaced by a steely resolve. There's always a first time, Sitka. Who knows? Maybe they'll surprise us. But his faded charm betrayed the weight of his words, and the bar seemed to hold its breath. Far across the stars, in the gleaming war chamber of the Thuck Imperium, High Sovereign Zisk stood tall, his iridescent exoskeleton catching the harsh light like a living jewel. His compound eyes surveyed his war council, reflecting their fierce loyalty. War strategist Kiskit stepped forward, his mandibles clicking with confidence. We've cracked the humans' defenses, Sovereign. Every platform, every fleet, every installation, mapped out. Their so-called quantum displacement. Nothing but a clever ruse. Holographic projections and automated platforms hidden in their outer system. We've got them figured out. Zisk's antennae twitched, his voice sharp. And their psychological warfare? Those sneaky tricks they pulled on the Vraxians. Kiskit's eyes gleamed. Neutralized, Sovereign. Our warriors don't have those pesky mammalian instincts. Our ship environments are sealed tight, filtered against any chemical agents. They've got nothing on us. Xenopsychologist Zay chimed in, her carapace etched with the scars of countless dissections. Humans have this weird empathic knack, modeling other species' minds to manipulate them. But our collective consciousness, it's immune. They can't touch us. Zisk rose to his full, towering height, his voice booming. Then we strike. Not with a puny force like the Vraxians or a mere battle group like the Hadron. No, we unleash the 4th, 5th, and 6th swarms, 300 capital ships, 2,000 support vessels, 10 million warriors. Let's show these humans what real power looks like. On Earth, deep within the titanium-reinforced Himalayan defense complex, Admiral Elena Thompson stared at a holographic display, her heart sinking as Thuck fleet movements lit up like a swarm of angry hornets. They're coming, aren't they? All 3 swarms. Ambassador Douglas, his face etched with grim resolve, nodded. 17 diplomatic overtures, Elena, all rejected. We tried everything. Dr. Wei Xiao, a xenobiologist with eyes sharp as lasers, spoke up. Their hive mind is like a steel wall. Expansion is their only drive. No room for compromise. General Mateo Oliveira, his weathered face grim, assessed the threat. If they break through our orbital defenses, 10 million Thuck warriors will hit every continent. We'd hold them off eventually, but the civilian casualties? Catastrophic. Can you even imagine the devastation? Thompson's jaw tightened, her finger highlighting the Thuck armada. Then we don't let them touch the ground. It's time for Protocol Omega. No other choice. Douglas's voice was heavy. The Council hasn't greenlit Omega, Elena. Not since the Crawl incursion, and that was just a demo, not a full deployment. Thompson's eyes blazed. The Council gave us autonomy for planetary defense. Nikwal. This is it. This qualifies. Dr. Zhao's face twisted with worry. Omega wasn't built for this scale, Admiral. The fallout could be unpredictable. Are we sure about this? Thompson's voice was steel. More unpredictable than 2 billion dead in the first week? Nikwal, inform the Council. Note your objection, but we're doing this. Douglas sighed, resignation in his eyes. Noted. God help us if we're wrong. The Thuck attack came like a thunderclap, their fleet bypassing outer defenses with pinpoint FTL jumps, surrounding Earth with hive ships that loomed like monstrous insect nests. Human fire splashed harmlessly against their shields, and Zisk watched from the flagship Queen's mandible, his mandibles clicking with satisfaction. Begin landing operations. I want Earth crawling with our warriors. A sensor operator's voice cut through, trembling. Sovereign. Unusual energy signatures from the surface. Quantum-level manipulation. Unknown weapons. Zisk dismissed it with a hiss. Irrelevant. Deploy the drop ships. Now, thousands of sleek, chitinous drop ships detached, streaking toward Earth's atmosphere. And then, poof. They vanished. The operator stammered. No debris, no discharge. They just ceased to exist at the atmospheric boundary. What's happening? Zisk's posture stiffened. Pull back. hit the surface with long-range weaponry. The fleet's massive energy cannons roared, volleys powerful enough to level continents. But they too disappeared into thin air. Zisk's compound eyes widened in disbelief. What sorcery is this? A human female appeared on the view screen. Admiral Thompson, her uniform crisp, her expression cold as a glacier. "We call it the Omega Protocol," she said, her voice calm but laced with steel. "A quantum phase shield wrapping our entire planet. Anything trying to breach it gets translocated to a destination of our choosing. Guess where?" Zisk's mandibles quivered with rage. "What destination?" Thompson's eyes didn't waver. "Your homeworld, Sovereign, right above your royal breeding chambers. Your drop ships, your weapons, they're all crashing down on your most sacred hive complex as we speak." Panicked reports flooded in from the Thuck homeworld. Explosions, drop ships smashing into royal structures, energy blasts tearing through breeding chambers. Zisk screeched, his voice a piercing wail. "You're lying. This can't be." Thompson's voice was heavy with regret. "I wish I were, Sovereign. The protocol stays active for 1 hour. After that, anything entering our atmosphere gets obliterated, not translocated. Recall your forces and start evacuating your homeworld, now." The transmission cut, leaving Zisk staring at chaos unfolding across his displays. As the Thuck fleet scrambled to retreat, Zay approached, her posture deferential but urgent. "Sovereign, we misjudged them. With this tech, they could have sent our fleet into their sun or our homeworld into the void. Instead, they chose a survivable demonstration. They showed mercy. Can you believe it?" 3 months later, in the sleek halls of a neutral space station orbiting Proxima Centauri, history was made as a peace treaty was signed between the Human Federation and the Thuck Imperium. Ambassador Douglas faced Zay, now the Thuck's chief diplomatic emissary, her carapace gleaming with newfound purpose. "The terms are acceptable." Zay's translated voice rang out. "The Imperium recognizes human sovereignty, agrees to demilitarized zones, and accepts reparations for the 17 worlds we consumed. It's a start." Douglas nodded, his eyes warm but tired. "Generations may pass, Zay, but the important thing? It begins now." Among the human delegation, Weber was approached by a familiar figure. Gorn, his scales polished, now a junior attaché for the Draxel Confederacy. "Your stories from that bar, Weber? They changed me," Gorn said, his voice thick with respect. Weber laughed, his grin infectious. "From mercenary scout to diplomat? That's a heck of a leap, Gorn." His tone sobered. "It was close, you know. Omega was our last resort. The collateral damage? The Thuck's population growth will be stunted for centuries. It's a heavy price." Gorn's eyes widened, awe in his voice. "You regret it, don't you? Even though they came to wipe out your world." Weber's voice was soft, sincere. "Of course, Gorn. Hurting others is never something to cheer about, even when it's necessary." Gorn nodded slowly, his tail still as he processed the words. "You humans, you're dangerous. Not because you're predators, but because you're predators who choose not to be. You could have wiped out the Vraxians, enslaved the Hadron, obliterated the Thuck, but every time, you used just enough force and then offered peace. Who does that?" Weber shrugged, his smile wry. "Common sense, Gorn. That's all it is." Gorn shook his head, insistent. "No, Weber. Across the galaxy, species that can dominate, do. You humans? You've evolved past that. It's unreal." Weber's smile turned sharp, his eyes glinting with a quiet intensity. "Not entirely, my friend. We still bicker among ourselves. Plenty. But we've learned something crucial. The most dangerous predator isn't the one with the sharpest claws or the strongest jaws. It's the one who can afford to show mercy. That's what makes us truly terrifying. Don't you think?" Oh, the sheer brilliance of humanity's adaptability in this story hits me right in the heart. It's not just about surviving. It's about thriving against all odds with a fierce, unyielding spirit. The way humans in this tale turn their lack of claws or scales into a superpower through ingenuity and empathy. That's a lifestyle I can't help but admire. It screams resilience, shouting to the universe that you don't need to be the strongest to win. You just need to be clever and compassionate. Socially, this story makes my blood sing with hope. Humans here don't just dominate. They choose mercy, offering peace to those who destroy them. In a world real or fictional, where power often corrupts. This choice to build bridges instead of walls is revolutionary. It's a call to action. Why can't we all strive to understand, to adapt, to find common ground instead of tearing each other apart? The Vraxians had run. Even the Thuk. Humans could have crushed them, but they didn't. That restraint, that belief in coexistence, it's what makes my heart swell with pride for what humanity could be. But here's the gut punch. The story also stings with truth. We're not there yet. Humanity still fights itself, as Weber admits, and that raw honesty cuts deep. It's a challenge. Can we evolve past our own conflicts like these humans did against galactic foes? I'm fired up to say yes. Let's embrace that adaptability, that mercy, and make our world one where we solve problems together, not create them. This isn't just sci-fi. It's a passionate blueprint for a better us.